Alien girl dreads mating with brutal human until she sees him in person. Sarixa had always believed that fear was a useful thing. On her homeworld of Lithi, fear kept people alive. It warned them when storms came too early, when predators moved too close, and when strangers spoke too softly. Fear was taught in schools, sung in old warning songs, and carved into the long memory of her species. That was why Sarixa trusted it, and fear told her one thing very clearly now. Humans were monsters. The message blinked again on the hollow panel inside the transport cabin. Galactic Conquer Directive. Her long fingers trembled despite her effort to stay calm. Around her, the transport hummed softly as it passed through the safe lanes of conquered space, carrying diplomats, soldiers, and unwilling participants like herself. A human. Of all the species in the Conquered, it had to be humans. She closed her eyes and tried to breathe slowly, just as her tutors had taught her. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Calm the heart, calm the thoughts. It did not work. She had grown up hearing stories about humans. Everyone had. Even on distant Lithi, far from human space, their reputation had traveled faster than their ships. Humans were born on a death world. That alone frightened most species. Their planet was full of poisons, violent weather, crushing gravity, and animals that killed for food or fear. Humans had not only survived there, they had thrived. That kind of survival changed a species. They are loud, the elders said. They are violent, the teachers warned. They bond quickly and fight fiercely, the military reports claimed. And worst of all, humans were said to treat mating as something intense, emotional, and permanent. For Sarix's people, bonding was slow, careful, and often distant. The idea of being assigned to a human through a political program felt like being thrown into a storm without shelter. Sarixa wrapped her arms around herself and looked around the cabin. A few other passengers sat nearby, an insected trader clicking softly to itself, a tall avian diplomat preening his feathers, and a pair of small mammalian engineers whispering nervously. She wondered how many of them feared humans too. The interspecies bonding program had been announced only months ago, after the long border conflicts finally ended. Too many misunderstandings, too much fear. The Conquered believed forced cooperation would create peace faster than treaties alone. Sarixa had been chosen because she was a xenobiologist. She studied other species. She believed in understanding. That irony was not lost on her. Understanding humans, however, felt impossible. She reached into her travel case and pulled out an old data tablet filled with archived reports. Human war footage, human emergency responses, human survival records. She hesitated, then played one. The screen showed armored figures running through smoke and fire. Explosions shook the ground. Humans shouted to each other, voices sharp and fast. One human lifted a heavy beam off another with impossible strength. Another carried a wounded alien twice his size without slowing down. They looked unstoppable. Sarixa stopped the recording, her chest tight. They do not know restraint, her grandmother used to say. If you stand in their way, they will break you. Sarixa believed her. The transport lights dimmed as they entered approach mode. A calm, artificial voice filled the cabin. Attention passengers. We will arrive at Conquered Station Helios in 12 minutes. Please prepare for docking. 12 minutes. Her hands shook again. She smoothed the fabric of her formal robe, adjusting the silver clasp at her throat. This was not a meeting she could refuse. The Conquered did not allow refusals anymore, not after so much war. She stood when the docking signal sounded, joining the slow line toward the exit ramp. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself forward. Be calm, she told herself. Be respectful. Do not provoke. The doors slid open. Conquered Station Helios was massive. Curved walls of shining alloy stretched overhead, lit by warm, artificial sunlight. Dozens of species moved through the arrival hall, some floating, some walking, some rolling on mechanical limbs. The air smelled of metal, recycled oxygen, and unfamiliar spices. And then she saw them. Humans. They were taller than most species around them, broad-shouldered and solid. Their movements were confident, efficient. Some wore dark uniforms marked with the symbol of the conquered. Others wore simple civilian clothing. Serix's heart raced. She expected chaos, noise, aggression. Instead, she saw something else. A human knelt near a crying child from a small reptilian species, speaking softly while offering a nutrient packet. Another human carefully guided an elderly alien down a ramp, adjusting their pace without being asked. Two humans stood near a security checkpoint, alert but relaxed, joking quietly with a tall crystalline being. They did not look like monsters. That made her more nervous, not less. Her escort drone beeped softly, pulling her attention back to the present. "Representative Serixa of Lithi," it said. "Please proceed to meeting point C," she followed, her eyes scanning every human face she passed. Some looked tired. Some looked focused. A few noticed her and nodded politely. None stared. None showed threat displays. Meeting point C was a quiet section near a panoramic viewport that looked out into open space. Stars glittered beyond the transparent barrier, cold and endless. Someone was already waiting there. He stood with his hands behind his back, posture straight but not stiff. He wore a simple dark uniform with no visible weapons. His hair was short and dark. His face showed faint lines of age and experience, but his expression was calm. Human. Serixa froze. This was him, Lieutenant Aaron Hale. Her escort drone drifted away, leaving them alone. For a long moment, neither spoke. Serixa felt her fear spike. She waited for him to step closer, to loom over her, to do something sudden. He did not. Instead, he took a small step back, increasing the distance between them. Then he inclined his head slightly, a gesture she recognized from diplomatic briefings. "Representative Serixa," he said, his voice low and steady. "I'm Lieutenant Aaron Hale. It's good to finally meet you." His tone was careful, controlled, not loud, not aggressive. Serixa swallowed and forced herself to respond. "Lieutenant Hale," she said, "I acknowledge this meeting." It was stiff but polite. Her training helped her hold her ground. "I've reviewed your species comfort guidelines," Aaron continued. "If you need more space, different lighting, or anything adjusted, please tell me." She blinked. That was not what she expected. He gestured toward a nearby seating alcove, keeping his movement slow. "We don't have to sit close, or at all, whatever works best for you." Serix's mind raced. Humans were supposed to dominate, to overwhelm, yet this one seemed to be doing the opposite. She lowered herself onto the edge of the seat, keeping a careful distance. Aaron sat across from her, not facing directly, his body turned slightly away in what she recognized as a non-threatening posture. Silence stretched between them. Outside the viewport, a cargo ship drifted past, its engines glowing softly. Serixa studied him without meaning to. He did not bare his teeth. His eyes moved slowly, respectfully, never lingering too long. His hands rested open on his knees. This human looked tired, not brutal. Aaron spoke again. "I know this assignment wasn't your choice," he said. "It wasn't mine either. But I want you to know I will not force anything, not conversation, not closeness, not trust." Her frills lifted slightly in surprise. "You understand fear?" she asked quietly. He met her eyes just for a moment. "Yes," he said. "Humans know fear very well." That simple statement struck her harder than any display of strength. As the station lights shifted to evening mode, Serixa felt something unfamiliar stir beneath her fear. Confusion, and quietly curiosity. The stories she had believed all her life did not match the human sitting across from her now. And for the first time since receiving the Conquered's message, Serixa wondered if fear might not be telling her the whole truth. Serixa did not sleep well that cycle. The guest quarters assigned to her were quiet, warm, and carefully adjusted to match Lithi comfort levels. The lights dimmed gently, and the air carried the faint scent of home plants meant to calm her nerves. Still, her thoughts would not rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the human's face. Not angry, not cruel, tired and patient. That made her uneasy. She had expected fear to protect her. Instead, fear had been challenged. When the station lights shifted to morning mode, Sarixa rose slowly and prepared herself. She adjusted her robe and checked her reflection in the polished wall. Her frills were calm now, their soft colors showing only mild stress. Today, according to the Concord schedule, she and Lieutenant Hale were to begin bonding orientation. The word alone made her stomach tighten. She arrived early at the assigned chamber, a shared cultural exchange room overlooking a hydroponic garden. Tall alien trees reached toward the light, their leaves glowing softly. The space felt neutral, designed so no species would feel threatened. Aaron was already there. He stood near the viewing rail, hands resting on the smooth surface, watching the gardeners work below. He turned when he heard her steps and offered a small nod. "Good morning, Sarixa," he said. She noticed he did not use a title this time. "Good morning, Aaron," she replied after a short pause. Saying his name felt strange, intimate in a way she was not used to. They stood in silence for a moment, then Aaron gestured toward a table set with small data pads. "The Concord requires us to exchange cultural information," he said, "but we can go at your pace." Sarixa sat, folding her hands carefully. "You are not uncomfortable with this." He gave a short, quiet breath that might have been a laugh. "Uncomfortable, yes, but discomfort doesn't mean danger." That was another human idea she had not heard before. They began with simple topics: homeworld climates, education systems, food customs. Sarixa explained how her people valued patience and balance, how they avoided strong emotions because emotions could lead to mistakes. Aaron listened closely, asking careful questions. When it was his turn, he spoke about Earth. He described storms that could flatten cities, oceans that could swallow continents, and animals that hunted without mercy. Sarix's frills tightened as she listened. "How did your species survive such a world?" she asked. Aaron thought for a moment. "Together," he said. "No one survives Earth alone for long." That answer stayed with her. As the session continued, Sarixa noticed something else. Aaron was always watching her reactions. If she leaned back, he gave more space. If her frills darkened, he slowed his speech. When a loud machine started nearby, he paused until it passed. He was adapting. At one point, she finally asked the question that had burned in her thoughts. "Why do humans accept this program?" she said. "You are feared. You are powerful. You could have refused." Aaron's jaw tightened slightly, not in anger but in thought. "Because being feared has a cost," he said. "People see us as weapons, monsters, useful only in war." He looked out at the garden again. "Some of us want to be seen as more than that." Sarixa felt something shift inside her chest. Later that cycle, the station alarm sounded. Not a full emergency, but a level 2 alert. Structural instability in one of the outer rings. Several civilian habitats were at risk. Sarixa froze as the lights changed color. Aaron was already moving. "Stay here," he said automatically, then stopped himself. "I mean, would you prefer to stay here?" She hesitated. Fear rose again, sharp and cold, but curiosity pushed back. "I will observe," she said, "from a safe distance." He nodded. "That's fair." They moved through the corridors together, joining streams of responders. Humans were everywhere now, calm, fast, focused. They spoke in short, clear commands. No shouting, no panic. Sarixa watched as a human engineer sealed a breach with practiced hands while another checked oxygen levels for a group of frightened aliens. A human medic knelt beside an injured avian, speaking gently while treating a broken wing. This was not violence. This was control. A sudden tremor shook the station. Sarixa stumbled, her balance failing. Before she could fall, Aaron's hand was there, firm, steady, supporting her weight. He released her immediately once she was stable. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," she said, surprised by how safe she had felt in that brief moment. They reached a viewing platform overlooking the damaged ring. Through the transparent barrier, Sarixa saw twisted metal and drifting debris. Rescue teams moved carefully, tethered to the structure. A section collapsed without warning. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then the humans moved. One leapt across a widening gap, anchoring a line. Another followed, securing a trapped alien technician. A third positioned himself between falling debris and a group of smaller species, taking the impact on reinforced armor. Sarix's breath caught. They were strong, yes, but they were also careful. They could have saved themselves faster by leaving others behind. They did not. The alert ended hours later. Casualties were minimal. Lives were saved. Back in the quiet of the observation room, Sarixa sat in silence, her thoughts racing. "You could have died," she said softly. Aaron shrugged. "That's the job." "That is accepted?" she asked. He met her eyes. "Protecting others is always accepted." She had no answer to that. As they parted for the cycle, Sarixa returned to her quarters with a heavy mind. She replayed everything she had seen, every controlled movement, every gentle word, every act of protection. Humans were dangerous, not because they lacked restraint, but because they possessed it. And for the first time, Sarixa realized her fear was changing. It was no longer warning her to run. It was asking her to understand. The crisis on conquered Station Helios was not over. Sarixa learned this when the lights dimmed again, this time without warning. A low vibration passed through the floor, stronger than before. The air itself seemed to tighten. Then the alarm sounded. Not level 2, level 4. Sarixa stood in her quarters, frozen, as the emergency announcement echoed through the station. "Attention all personnel. External breach detected in Ring 7. Multiple hull failures. Civilian sectors affected. All emergency responders deploy immediately." Her frills darkened with fear. Ring 7. That was where the mixed species housing blocks were located. Families, children, non-combatants. Before she could think, her door slid open. Aaron stood there, already in emergency gear. His expression was focused, but his eyes softened when he saw her. "It's bad," he said honestly. "I won't lie to you." Her voice trembled. "People will die." "Yes," he said, "if we don't act fast." She swallowed. "You're going." "I am?" She hesitated, then surprised herself. "I'm coming." He did not argue, he only nodded once. "Stay close. Follow my lead." They moved quickly through the corridors as gravity fluctuated. Smoke drifted from ceiling vents. Emergency lights painted the walls red and gold. Around them, humans and other responders ran toward danger instead of away from it. Sarix's heart pounded painfully. This was the moment the stories had warned her about. This was where humans became brutal. They reached Ring 7 through an emergency airlock. The sight beyond made Sarixa gasp. A long section of the ring was exposed to space, sealed only by emergency force fields. Metal beams twisted like broken bones. Pieces of stations floated slowly beyond the transparent barrier. Inside, civilians were trapped in pockets of failing gravity. Children cried, elders clung to walls. Fear filled the air. Humans moved into the chaos like they belonged there. Team Alpha stabilized the field. Their voices were firm, clear, never panicked. Aaron guided Sarixa to a secure platform. "Stay here," he said. "This field should hold." She grabbed his sleeve without thinking. "You promised not to leave." He looked down at her hand, then back at her face. "I promised not to force trust," he said gently. "Not that I wouldn't protect others." Before she could reply, he moved forward into danger. Sarixa watched in helpless fear as he joined a group of humans reinforcing a collapsing support beam. The structure groaned, threatening to give way. Then it did. The beam fell. Aaron shoved another responder clear and took the impact himself, slamming into the floor. The sound echoed through the chamber. "Human down!" someone shouted. Sarix's breath stopped. Without thinking, she ran. She ignored the fear screaming in her mind. She ignored the instincts telling her to hide. She reached Aaron's side as other humans lifted the beam away. He was bleeding. His breathing was heavy, but he was alive. "Why?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "Why do this?" He looked up at her, pain clear in his eyes, but there was no regret. "Because," he said, "if we don't, who will?" That answer shattered something inside her. She helped the medic stabilize him, her hands steady despite her fear. Around them, the rescue continued. Humans worked with tireless focus, protecting smaller species with their bodies, using their strength not to destroy, but to shield. One human lost her helmet seal to save a trapped insectoid child. Another floated into open space, tethered only by a line, to manually close a breach no machine could reach in time. They did not hesitate. They did not calculate personal survival. They chose others. The breach was sealed hours later. Ring 7 was saved. The cost was high but far lower than expected. Sarixa sat beside Aaron in the medical bay, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. Machines hummed softly around him. A senior Concord official entered, flanked by aides. "You witnessed human response firsthand," the official said to Sarixa. "Do you still fear them?" Sarixa stood slowly. "I fear them," she said honestly, "but not because they are cruel." She turned toward the humans moving through the bay, tired, injured, still helping. "I fear them," she continued, "because they are willing to suffer for others without being asked." The official said nothing. When Aaron woke later, Sarixa was still there. "You stayed," he said quietly. "Yes." "Still afraid?" She considered the question. "Yes," she admitted, "but fear is no longer my guide." He smiled faintly. Outside the medical bay, word of the humans' actions spread through the station. Other species watched differently now. With less suspicion, with growing respect. Humans had always been dangerous, but not for the reason anyone believed. They were dangerous because they chose compassion in a universe that rewarded cruelty. And Sarixa knew, deep in her heart, that nothing in the galaxy was more powerful than that. Concord Station Helios changed after Ring 7. The damage was repaired within weeks, but the memory of that day stayed. Corridors once filled with quiet distance between species now held conversations. Where aliens had once stepped away from humans, they now stopped to speak, to ask questions, to say thank you. Sarixa noticed it everywhere. She stood near a wide viewport, watching a group of human engineers joke softly while working beside a tall, shelled alien. No fear, no tension, just cooperation. She never thought she would see that. Aaron recovered slowly. Humans healed fast compared to many species, but his injuries had been serious. During those days, Sarixa visited him often. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they sat in silence, watching the stars drift by. Silence with a human, she learned, was not empty. It was shared. One cycle, while Aaron rested, a Concord summons arrived for Sarixa. Mandatory appearance. Many species had protested after Ring 7, claiming humans were too dangerous to be placed among civilians. Sarixa walked into the council chamber alone. The room was vast and circular, filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. Some floated, some perched. Some stood behind shimmering shields of light. At the center, the council core glowed softly. "Representative Sarixa of Lithi," the lead counselor said, "you were present during the Ring 7 incident." "Yes," she replied. "You were bonded to a human participant." "Yes." "Do you believe the program should continue?" The chamber grew silent. Sarixa felt every eye on her. She thought of the stories she had believed as a child, of monsters born from death worlds, of humans as weapons barely controlled. Then she thought of Aaron, bleeding but calm, of humans forming living shields, of hands reaching for strangers in the dark. "I believe," she said slowly, "that we misunderstood humans." A ripple passed through the chamber. "They are dangerous," she continued, her voice steady, "but not because they enjoy harm. They are dangerous because they choose to protect." Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. On my world, Sarixa said, we avoid pain at all costs. Humans face it willingly for others. That is not brutality. That is responsibility. The lead counselor tilted its head. And the bonding program, Sarixa lifted her chin. I choose to continue my bond, a soft murmur spread. Not because I am ordered, she added, but because I trust humanity. The chamber fell silent again, this time not with fear but with thought. The council core pulsed. Decision noted, the lead counselor said. The program will continue with revisions. Sarixa exhaled slowly. When she returned to the medical wing, Aaron was sitting up, reading from a data pad. He looked up when she entered. You look like you survived something worse than Ring 7, he said lightly. She smiled, a small, honest smile. I spoke for you, she said. For us, he corrected gently. She stepped closer. Yes, for us. They moved to a rehabilitation deck weeks later, walking slowly through the station gardens. Alien plants swayed under artificial light. Birds from distant worlds sang softly. You know, Aaron said, humans were afraid too. Sarixa looked at him. Afraid of what? Being alone, he replied. We survived Earth by sticking together, losing that being seen as monsters. It hurts more than any injury. She stopped walking. So you hide your strength, she said. He nodded. Because strength without trust becomes fear. Sarixa reached out, placing her hand lightly against his arm, a gesture of connection in her culture. Then let us be seen, she said, together. The formal bonding ceremony was simple. No dominance, no force, no fear. Just two beings standing before the conquered, choosing cooperation over assumption. The record listed it as a political success. The galaxy remembered it as something else. Stories spread across trade routes and star lanes. Stories of humans who carried strangers from fire. Stories of humans who bled so others could breathe. Stories of a death-world species that learned mercy the hard way and practiced it every day. Children from other worlds stopped fearing the word human. Some even admired it. From the viewport of conquered Station Helios, Sarixa watched a human ship depart, its hull marked with symbols of aid, not war. She felt calm. Fear had once guided her life. Now understanding did. Beside her, Aaron stood quietly. What happens next? He asked. Sarixa looked out at the stars, vast, dangerous, and full of life. Next, she said, we show the galaxy who humans truly are. And for the first time, the galaxy was ready to listen.